So I just went through a build showcase showing the build with these relics, but let's go into her constellations as well as go over some other relic builds for her. So with her constellations, this is primarily leveraging her 2 and 3 star as well as her 6 star. You can do this as well with just her 2 and 3 star, but the 6 star is going to allow you to kill them without the attack token. So with the 2 star, you get permanent stat buffs and keywords of the recalled allies, as well as reducing their cost by 1. And then when you recall an ally, you grant it spirit or summon or recall an ally, so they essentially get +2/+2 every time you summon and recall them. So that is what you're primarily building around here. Then the parting gifts, when you recall an ally, they strike the enemy nexus. This just allows you to do this without ever attacking in and having to worry about the units that could defend or not having the attack token. So let's go to the relic section. Primarily, what you're trying to do is get really cheap recalls for her and also play her out cheaply. Normally, she will cost 1 to play out after you've recalled her once, so it doesn't take that much, but it essentially means if you're trying to do things on turn 1, you first have to play her for 2, then you recall her once, you play her again, and that's your 3 mana. So you only really get to play her twice unless you have some way of reducing her cost. If you're able to, at some point during your run, draft something like -1 cost to Ahri, then of course you can continually play her out for free, but that requires you to get lucky and hit some cost reduction on Ahri when you're in your run and won't really guarantee regular draws. So some other options for this besides using Searing Brilliance, you could use, so this is just to get more copies of your recalls. In your starting deck, you have Charm and Spirit Dance. These are both low-cost recalls. You also have Homecoming, which if you're using Searing Brilliance, you'll want to cut Homecoming as soon as possible. This is a recall, but you don't want to be really playing 3-cost recalls, and plus this has no synergy with the Found Fortune, whereas the other ones, once you reduce their cost, they can be picked by Found Fortune. They'll cost 0 pretty much anyway, but it's more just about getting that consistent draw of those recalls and being able to leverage that. But if you want to, instead of Searing Brilliance, you can use Echoing Spirit. This will allow you to just get multiple copies of Ahri in your hand. It also will give you more consistent draws of Ahri herself. And then her champion spell is normally this Ahri's Charm, but it already, depending on your level of her, should have a reduced cost. So it's, where is it in your starting deck here? You can see it has this mana potion on it, which reduces its cost by 1, so it's already a 1 cost. And then when you use Echoing Spirit, that will further bring it down to a 0 cost. So playing 1 copy of Ahri out there, and then you can recall her for free with just using her champion spell and continually doing that. Unfortunately, you'll run out of copies of her in your hand eventually because you're not drawing new copies of her. So that's one of the risks here. If you don't have enough recalls in order to finish your combo, by the time that you run out of copies, then you're sort of stuck with her at whatever stats you have, and you have to wait till you draw more recalls in order to keep running your combo. Some other things you can run in here, of course, if you're still trying to do this build with Found Fortune, then, sorry, let me just go back here. If you're still trying to do this build with like Found Fortune, instead of Packed Powder, a very easy substitute for this is the Scourge's Stash. So this is a relic that I believe is obtainable through quests or something, or not the Grand General's Counterpine, sorry, Scourge's Stash, there we go, reduces cost by 2. This is one that's obtainable through the campaign or one of the character quests or something like that. So you should be able to get this one pretty easily, and then you can run this very similarly. Again, you could replace this with Echoing Spirit. Found Fortune, you can also run a completely different build with her, where you're focusing more on, where is Hymn of Valor? So you can do something like this, which is very common that people will run. And you can use either the Lost Chapter, or you can use the Hidden Tome. So where's Hidden Tome? Hidden Tome. So either of these will make it so when you play Ahri, you will refill your spell mana. Typically, if you're doing this, you would want to actually, you would want to use Echoing Spirit if you're doing this sort of build. So then you play Ahri out, you're able to get a thing that doubles her stats. You get full spell mana so that you can cast that on her. Then you recall her, you play her out again, you get another copy of this, you refill your spell mana, and you double her stats again. So, if you're able to do this 2 or 3 times, you're already, tripling or quadrupling her stats, and that should be enough that if you have her 6-star, when you recall her, that's just going to nuke their Nexus and they're going to be dead. So really, really strong, this sort of build. Again, the sort of weakness potential here is just that you either run out of recalls, or in this case, it would cost mana to play her. So like turn 1, it's a little bit harder to kill them with this build, but typically by turn 2, you should be able to kill them, provided you have enough recalls in your hand, or enough copies of Ahri in your hand in order to do this. So that's what can be done there. There are other options you could run. If you're sort of desperate, I guess, you could run Cease and Desist until you won't really get any value out of this until she hits 10 power, but then she'll, attack in during each recall. If you don't have her 6-star, that's a way to get a continuous recall and attack in sort of thing going. You could certainly do that instead of, if we were doing that Searing Brilliance and Found Fortune. So if we're doing this one where we're drawing a lot of recalls, it now would cost still 1 to play her, so you'll have a limited number of times you could play her. But if you don't have that, you could also use the Gatebreaker. If you don't have, there we go, Gatebreaker. If you don't have her 6-star, this would be an option. This just makes it so that when you play her, you're striking, rather than when you recall her, you're striking. But this would get you consistent strikes. This will, be less effective in that, you're not able to play her out for free, so you only be able to play her a limited number of times. But it should have a similar effect. So that's always an option there as well. I think if you don't have her 6-star, it's probably better to just focus on drawing more of your units, giving her the buffs, probably giving her, using this Hymn of Valor, and using the either, where is it, the Lost Chapter, either Lost Chapter or Hidden Tome with this. If you need more copies of Ahri in your deck and you don't have Echoing Spirit, you can also substitute that out for the Chameleon's Necklace. This won't reduce the cost of her champion spell, so again, this will make it harder to complete your combo. It'll probably take more turns and whatnot, but this can also work. It'll just take a little longer to scale up without her 6-star and without that consistency. So yeah, this is generally what you're trying to do, though. Just get more stats, more recalls, and get that consistency going with each of them. So hope that helped explain what you can do with Ahri, and there's definitely a lot of flexibility with her. It's all sort of around the same theme generally, but it's fairly strong to just focus on her recall mechanics and increasing her power and then striking their nexus. So hope you enjoyed, and let me know if you have any questions or things that you would like me to dive into a bit deeper. Have a good one.